Welcome back to the Justice Factor. The deal to bring about peace between political parties in Parliament is off. Opposition leaders met Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa on Monday, and both sides agreed that the deal was dead in the water just a week after it was agreed upon. What happened? What happens now? Dear Parliamentary Leader Mmusi Maimane and COPE Leader Mosuioa Lekota are my guests today. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Mmusi Maimane, let me start with you. You shook hands on this, you were on television, the lights were going off, it was a fantastic deal, and now it's off just 7 days later. What went wrong?
Good evening. Well, I think it's important to note what the deal was. The deal was, in fact, about let's agree that the rules of the House will be maintained. Let's agree about the fact that executive accountability will be effected, that there won't be a use of riot police, that the speakers must operate in the right way. Those are the terms of the deal. Those have not changed.
The ANC says in its statement today that actually you went and broke the deal. It was agreed that you'd put in abeyance the motion to censure the President of South Africa, and you went and did it anyway.
What I never agreed to was to say that in the name of peace, as they've put it now, that we'll abandon our constitutional mandate. I never agreed that, in fact, a whole term of office must, a whole 6 months must disappear with the president not coming to come and answer questions.
But for the sake of peace, couldn't you hold that in abeyance?
All I asked was that the president must account and that Parliament must account to that. For the sake of peace, it would suggest that I must then sit back and say, well, Nkandla actually never existed. No. I must further on say that the president has in fact been there.
Well, I expect you to keep your word.
No, we cannot be co-opted. And I never agreed to that. So I've kept my word. I've kept the principled deal. What broke the deal is the fact that when Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa went to his caucus and spoke to his other leadership, there was serious kickback coming from there. He knew he needed a way out. We can't abandon our constitutional mandate in the name of peace. We can't.
Mr. Lekota, do you agree that those were the terms of the agreement, that indeed you don't have to hold in abeyance issues of accountability and such in Parliament?
Well, what we do need to state is that there was agreement that we search for stabilization of Parliament. That in order to achieve that, because of the tension that had already developed, we needed to develop a process that would produce a political resolution of the problem we were faced with. To that extent that some of the issues we felt ought to be put one side because we proposed a structure that we believed would deal with those in the following week.
Do you agree that the DA shouldn't have put that motion forward then?
The motion was already on the program.
Should it have been pulled?
Well, what is unfortunate is that although the spirit was that we should seek a political solution, we discussed a few things. A few things were mentioned specifically, but we did not mention specifically the motion of the DA that was already on the program. I hold to the view that had that issue been raised specifically, we may well have found a common position on it. But because it had not been raised specifically, we left the meeting without any formal position on it. When ultimately the matter was touched upon from what was discussed later on, today, it is clear that some of the people discussed this when the meeting had already gone apart. And even then, we hold the view that once that issue had come up, it should have been brought back to the meeting.
Okay, let's move on.
And so that leaves us in a position in which we have no.
But not going down to the details means that both of you were essentially co-opted, and when you behaved in a manner you believe was right, you surprised your co-opter, which is the ANC.
No, we were not. I'm saying this. The general spirit to find a political solution was among all of us.
Okay.
That some of the issues were specifically discussed. The problem with this question of this motion is that none of us raised it in the formal meeting. in which case we would have been able to take a firm position.
But either way, to highlight, and I mean, the motion is a principal matter about the president not being there. So it can't be amended as and when we feel we need to go. But on the second issue, which is to say, what happens to a co-option? My biggest worry and concern for South Africans is that, are we all going to be a front for President Zuma? Are we going to allow Parliament to do the same? Are we going to now descend our democracy into throwing away everything, the book, the constitution, any accountability?
Okay, gentlemen, let's talk about the meeting today. Lekota, what happened today? What went wrong? Very quickly.
Well, first of all, we went over what I've just been talking about. And what was quite clear, again, even from the historical review of what happened, is that it is quite clear that the failure was that the issue of the motion didn't come up in the formal meeting, that it was discussed when some of us were not part of it and so on. And it's now, of course, history, that we were not able to have a common position that every one of us can be held to it. In the interaction between the DA and the NC, outside of the meeting, disagreement arose there.
I mean, what took place today was as follows. Quite clearly, we arrived there. It was quite clear at that point that the ANC had made a decision, principally to say they're staying away from the deal. That was then conclusively communicated to us. The opposition stood united to say that we still commit ourselves to the principles of the spirit of the deal, which is the decorum, the upholding of the rules, the strengthening of the institution, but furthermore, that ultimately we should push and continue to ask that President Zuma must account.
Is this all about President Zuma, that whatever agreement is on the table, the two of you and your fellows must not touch President Zuma then?
It's not even just about that. I'm saying that that's where Parliament has been operating out of. That's why Speaker Mbete was deployed to go there. But if
that's not strictly true. She's been Speaker of Parliament before, and she was Deputy Speaker for a very long time.
But when she came back this time, it was clearly because the Nkandla matter had come up, and she'd said that she wants to defend. The NEC has pronounced itself as saying Parliament must protect the presidency. That's a pronouncement from the NEC. All I'm saying here today is that if Parliament can't process a matter such as Nkandla, it will battle to process other things. Let me put on the table, there's a Rosatom deal here that we've still got to discuss. There are issues of economic growth that we still have to discuss. So part of the conversation saying, when you strengthen the institution without breaking the rules, let's make sure that discussions and debates end up on the floor so that we can in fact guide South Africa from a policy-making point of view.
That's what we'd like to see. What's going to happen on Thursday and next day?
Look, the point is this. The principal reason for this meeting was to find a stable parliament. Frankly, all of the other issues, the question of, even the question of that the executive has to come in account. That issue arose, and that issue was discussed specifically in our meeting last week. That issue was reiterated by the Deputy President himself in giving the report of all of us.
Is it non-negotiable that the executive must come in account?
It was not negotiable.
Okay.
He said, in fact, on behalf of all of us, because we had agreed that he was going to say on our behalf.
Why should Mmusi Maimane's motion break that deal?
That motion had been there before. It was not a product of the discussion. I don't know why we want to make this motion a product of the discussion when I'm saying it was not discussed specifically in the thing, in the House.
And that's the profound point you are making right there, is to say, when you can't call concessions to say we'll abide by the rules. That's part of Parliament.
Gentlemen, we've run out of time. Lekota, tell me now, what happens on Thursday when Parliament sits again?
Well, because it seems to me that we are going to see what we have been seeing up until now. Because what the position is that the parties are going back to Parliament, that we left there in a certain level of instability and disorder, and I cannot see how we can avoid that if we are not agreed on how that is going to be done and so on.
Mosuioa Lekota, Mmusi Maimane, I'm sorry we've run out of time. I'd love to have more time with you, but next time. Thanks so much.
Privilege.
Stay with us for the winner and loser of the week.